review engineer. We've got Jose Gonzalez with the building department, Paul Tamlin with the fire district, Sean McDermott, who's a new planner with the city as well. And then we've got a couple of callers. I'm not sure if that's us or the people with you, Scott.
I called in, John called in, so I'm one of the callers.
Okay, thank you.
Jay won't be able to speak.
Yes. Yep. Yes. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having this pre-app meeting. As you can tell by the submittal application, we are trying to determine which approach to take in developing the property. We have two product ideas that we're excited about, either one, and we're trying to figure out which is the best fit for this property. One is an apartment style project, probably similar to what you see north of the planning department now, kind of a 3-story walk-up style. It will be something probably style-wise or architecturally interesting. We want to do a nice product, and we're probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 300 units total. That obviously will depend on how we choose the unit mix and building size and all the other bulk requirements and amenities and so forth. And then the second option that we have been about for this project, as well as maybe some others, is a community of duplex units, so single family attached, so 2 units attached. And that's probably about half the density. That's probably in the neighborhood of around 150 dwelling units, 75 duplexes, somewhere in that neighborhood. I did supply the previous application that I was involved with was contemplating a townhouse community, which that site plan shows multiple building types, 3 to 6 units, I think, per building mass. Those would have been also available for individual ownership. So that's the site plan. I think the basic configuration that we would contemplate would be something similar. I know in previous conversations, we probably would not have a connection to the north, but would make that connection to the east to Cary Street. I guess one of the questions I have for staff is, well, it's kind of a couple of them. Are we okay with pursuing a multi-unit, an apartment style development there, if that's the route we choose to go? And as far as I remember, from an engineering perspective, access, water, sewer, non-pot, storm drainage, all those things are pretty set, because the whole area is developed around us. So there's accessibility and availability to each. If anything's changed, please let us know. So, do we have any? Are there any thoughts on the town's behalf, city's behalf?
Yeah, I'll just start with the history. This is Todd Hodges. So this is part of the original Cottonwood Greens, and so when it went through, they did contemplate a little bit of commercial and a mix of single family, I think some duplex, as well as some R3 multifamily. Not sure they were looking at any apartments on that original but the zoning would allow for that. The thing is that location, what's more suitable for the neighborhood and that density. And I think utilities and stuff are going to probably make a big difference too, obviously, with the cost of development. But it's something we would take a look at, and I need to think about that because it might be possible under our new land use code, you'd be under the new process, which is actually, quite frankly, I think a lot better. It can be faster and from a planning standpoint. And what we do is we start with a concept. We don't do the sketch plan anymore. It's called a concept phase, and I do take those to both planning commission and council to discuss a project. There is no vote, no approval. It's basically some direction so that you can get a feel based on your concept of whether that's something you want to go into full bore production on and go through the planning process. So a lot of times people would take a sketch plan and say, well, we got an approval and there's no vesting, but a lot of developers would actually take that as a vesting and then be upset when things had to change later. So we really changed that up. So that's a benefit that we might be able to float both sides. I mean, you may, and I want to talk to staff after this about that and then look at the comprehensive plan again, as we are looking at some amendments and make sure that that we're not looking at a density that may be a little much at that location. But again, we do need apartments. It's just whether that's the best place or not. I don't think the duplex concept or a townhome concept would be a problem, especially with the mix of development that's occurring adjacent to this property and across the ditch. We've got all the single family and the Cottonwood 1 through 10, and then we've got the LGI is currently building, and then we've got the Sun community with the manufactured housing directly adjacent. So I think there's another discussion to be had as far as once you do some due diligence on the cost for the utilities, because the water is going to be a big element, and I'll let Public Works go in that. So we're open to the concept and maybe even a mix. I want to take into account the height of the building too. When we've got the view corridors and stuff, that's something to take into consideration because I've seen a lot of opposition when we have, it's just natural when you have apartment complexes. It's unfortunate, but I've seen opposition for almost every complex. But we were fortunate enough to have the one across from the Safeway complex, and I think that's going to fill up so quick. It shows that there's a need for that type of housing, but I think that we still need other types like duplexes, and townhomes have been very popular. So we've got more of those going in the city since we've talked about it. I guess with that being said, let's get into public works. Let's just dive into public works because it goes into the road connections and the utilities that are going to make a big difference on this site.
Okay. Hi. Good morning.
So I have a quick question in regards to the utilities. The existing infrastructure that's in there in the horizontals, is it capable of taking on a multifamily complex of 300 units?
So the sanitary sewer services are the sanitary sewer downstream, the sewer main through the Rancho subdivision. There may be capacity issues for that, and that is something that we would ask the applicant to analyze for the city to see if they would be able to have that many units on and be able to still flow through the existing sanitary system. And then on that note, for utilities, you'd be under the 2022 resolution. And that is, and this will all be in my notes as well. The current cost of service for, and if you're doing a multifamily, that's considered a commercial enterprise. So essentially the 3/4 inch service or 2 SFEs would be 16,000. And then under the 2022 resolution, if you bring shares, you get 4 residential units for 1 share of CBT. And if you just do non-pot and cost and or cash in lieu, then it's 2 residences for per share of CBT. And right now the cash in lieu price for CBT in the city is $70,000. So, and then there's an individual meter fees as well to each individually metered unit. Or if it's multifamily and apartment building, that meter would need to be determined through your process and your design of that so that we could correctly size that meter that would enter the building. And then, of course, you'd be able to sub-meter after that. And then non-potable irrigation is in the Cottonwood Greens development. So, and that would work well with the connection to Cary Street. So, and we are still looking to have that connection to Cary Street. So that's on there. Also, there would be a right-of-way dedication for Northrop Avenue of an additional 42.5 feet. The entire, and that would be from the section line in the center of Northrop to where, which is where your property line is, to where the new property line would be. So that would be that. Traffic control study would be required. A utility study would be required. And a public improvements, well, actually a subdivision improvements agreement will be required for the construction of the roadway, water, sewer, and non-pot systems. And I think that's all I've got.
Hey, this is Todd again. David, what about the connection to the north? Because I think we had a stub from Sun that was required to go into this from prior discussions. So they had a connection to the north and the east across the ditch. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, the connection to the north, we are thinking probably doesn't need to happen anymore. If it did, it would just be in a locked access or gated access with Knox locks on it for the fire department, because Sun Communities does not want to have the additional traffic going through there. And when we thought about it logically, would the fire department want to drive north on Northrop all the way into Willow Crossing and then come back to the south, or, you know, have the connection to Cottonwood Greens, which we think traffic movement wise and as well as emergency response would be the better configuration. So that's our ideas on it.
Okay, thank you. So any questions for David?
Yeah, we're thinking that connection to the east to Cary Street would still be required.
Hey, I've got a question. So is the forced share for CBT, if the forced share per CBT, if we bring it, is for single family homes, and is it the same ratio 4-to-1 for townhomes and duplex units?
Yes, it is.
Okay, because usually we get a little more for townhomes, like a 6-to-1 ratio because they're attached. Or no?
So, you know what, I would include that in my notes if I get in different instructions, but as of right now, that's what I have in my notes is the 4-to-1.
4-to-1, okay.
This is Todd again. That's a good question. We consider the attached unit, it's still a single family unit, even though it's a multi-unit by definition, but it's single family. So that's why we've gone that way on that one. But Chris, did you have something else to say?
No, I was going to say it's good information. It's confirmation of the conversations we've had previously, and I think having Todd, if you and staff will give some additional consideration to the multifamily, we'll be considering that as well. some of our discussion is how do we make that product fit with the neighborhood. That's kind of how we came up with the duplex idea. So we still would like to consider it, and if we can find a way to make that appealing, well, we're always going to get opposition. You always get opposition to apartments no matter what if you have anyone in single family living next door. But if we can find a way to make that appealing, provide that product in an appropriate way, we'd like to still pursue that idea. And look forward to receiving the information regarding well, the engineering and so forth, just the process that will be going forward. And I do really like the new code and how you process that with the conceptual plan, so that we're able to get feedback from the decision body, prior to making a big commitment on engineering and architecture.
Right. That was the whole intent. It leaves some flexibility so we can go back and it's a dialogue and it's actually worked out well. I think the other staff would indicate that too. We've had at least 2 go through the conceptual review, and it's been quite positive. There may be a way to actually throw both concepts in front of them too. I know that since it is such a loose, it is truly conceptual. A lot of times the sketch plan got into way too far into the full design, and that doesn't leave room for, when you do get a lot of engineering affiliated with it, then there's not a lot of room to move because everybody's pretty rigid on what they've laid out, thinking it's the best thing there. But with the concept plan, you can truly be discussing these concepts and get feedback and have the city be a part of that overall design, which is, I think, what we've lost in a lot of communities, quite frankly. I'm not going to just pat the back of the city of Fort Lupton, but I think that's really the true intent of this land use process. The density is something I need to look at, because when the original change of zone, there was a original density being contemplated. Obviously, the entire subdivision is dismantled and changed, and this is the last piece of the Cottonwood overall. So I need to look at that density now. They know that you're looking at, at the high end around 300, and I can take that and then do a lot count on the rest of it and see if we're within that overall original PUD concept when the change of zone was done, because that might kick in a change of zone, and it's not a bad thing because that can be done with the preliminary plat. But it's something that I'll take a look at. And all the others, we've actually allowed them to move forward under that original PUD. I just need to look at the density to make sure that's not an issue. So, all right, let's see. How about Ta? Is Ta on with the fire district?
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning. I'll just kind of touch on with the public works too, that road. I agree, the road going to Willow Crossing, we wouldn't have any need to have that road going north. The fire code, the way the fire code's written, the road going east back over to Cottonwood would be the more desirable to meet the fire code for a second means of egress in that area. So that's kind of where we're at with that too. On top of that, if you're planning the 3-story apartment complex, obviously those will have to all have fire suppression systems put in for those. And I think beyond that, we've talked about road widths and fire hydrants meeting the flows for that area. But other than that, I don't think I have anything else more to add to that unless you have specific questions. We are currently under the 2018 fire code as well, so that would be what would be working under.
The only question I have is, do you have recent fire flow data in the area?
You'd have to get that from David.
Okay. I mean, if not, I guess we could do some flow tests if we need to. to understand the system.
Yeah.
All right, I was talking with the mute on. That's classic. Hey, thanks, Todd. How about Jose? Jose, do you have any comments from the building side?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I just want to just bring this up, and like Tom mentioned, if you go the apartment route, you have to go under the IBC. That automatically kicks in the sprinkler system. If you stick to townhomes or single-family homes, then you can design under the IRC. So keep that in mind. If you go with apartments, it has to go through under the IBC. That'll be a little bit more, I wouldn't say hard, but it'll be more spendy. So we're in the 2018 codes. We have adopted those codes as written. We don't have any funny amendments there. So that's how I'm going to throw in there, unless you have specific questions on the building side.
Any questions
I
for
have a
Jose?
I guess I've got a question. So just from what I'm gathering through this meeting, and I'm addressing the staff of the city of Fort Lupton now, it would, in your opinion, based on the knowledge you have right now, it would be less challenging for us to go the townhome route. Is that correct?
From a land use standpoint and the code, I think it sounds like it might be less challenging, but it's not necessarily mean that it's not something that could be done.
Okay.
But I think the water and the density is going to be a big key, because obviously apartments, there's a lot more that go into the apartment piece, and then, you know, so it's hard, and that's why the concept is set up the way it is, so that it's so flexible that you can shift gears and change it completely, and we can do another concept.
Yeah.
We've got a project so it's just getting it right, because once we go to preliminary, I mean, you're putting the effort into it, and under the new code, the preliminary goes to planning commission and council as a public hearing, and the final plat is actually a staff review under the new code. So we've made some major modifications. That's why we want to get it right and and you're not getting an approval, but you'll get the dialogue that gives you a sense of where you stand in that concept plan. So I think, you know, and we'll get a little more into it. I'll look at the densities so that we can take a look at it, and then the comprehensive plan, and how, because the zoning's there. It's just, is there any conflict in the existing zoning for that number of units? And that's what I'm going to take a look at. So a good questions, fair questions.
And so in your,
you guys,
appreciate the answer very much. Is in your personal opinion, as far as you personally stuff, aside the codes and everything, since you know the area better than we do, would you rather see on that specific location townhomes or an apartment building?
yeah, I think that's a good question, but I don't think that I'm in a position to answer that at this point. I need to look at that because I don't dictate. You know, it's basically land use. You propose it. We can say, here's what fits. I think I may have a little better answer once I take a look at the zoning a little closer and the overall density that was allowed, and then I can that may take care of the issue right there. Because if it's not supported by the existing zoning, while zoning can be changed, you know, the apartments are just a different animal, and it's like we do need apartments. It's just determining whether this is actually the right location for that. And I can't immediately tell you that.
Yeah,
Is that fair?
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very, very
How long would
fair.
it take
And
you
we
to
are
do
looking
that?
at other land nearby as well for apartments. So we're debating. That is already zoned for apartments.
How long would it take you to have that density report back?
It's probably going to be next week. Well, it actually will be next week because I'm not back until Tuesday. So next week at the earliest. But we would be responding in writing, and I would probably, I might want to have another conversation based on this conversation before we finalize our response. But we'll give you a written response based on this meeting with what would be required to go through the land use process. And the only difference would be whether there's a change of zone, I think. And maybe, and I'll just take a look at the comprehensive plan also and make sure that it's still in line with the densities that we're talking about, because that may be another thing that if I was, say I'm against your project, I would be looking at that. I'd be looking at any tool to persuade people that this is not the right location. And so I need to take, and that's something you guys need to take a look at also, not only the code, but the comprehensive plan, because that's part of the sale of any pitch or any project. So next week at the earliest, possibly the following week.
Perfect. Thank you.
So, yeah, on the planning side, anybody in the planning department or building that's on this, do you guys have any comments or any input based on what you've heard today?
This is Clay. I don't have anything.
All right, Sean or Magali?
I don't have anything either. Thank you.
Haley, any input?
None for me.
All right. No, it's been a good meeting, and I appreciate you guys. That it's exciting. We do like to see the continuation of development, and that's the last piece of that original cottonwood. So it'd be cool to have that linked in and brought in. We've obviously had a lot of interest in this property, from raising cattle to now apartments. So it's it's been a very diverse discussion, but I think we're honing in on something. I think that truly the duplex or the attached units, I don't really see that being an issue whatsoever with what's out there. The apartments, I'm intrigued by it, but again, we would just have to see if that is actually the right location and whether those impacts that may not be able to be addressed. And then the cost affiliated with the apartments and that density with the water as well as the construction, something that you guys will need to vet. But we do need additional apartments. Can you tell me, would these be the standard rate apartments, or are you looking at any CHAPA or any other funding for affordable housing type projects?
Well, our discussion so far really been in the market rate sector, but that doesn't mean we're not open to contemplating some affordable. I mean, we want to be affordable in the marketplace, but so far that's been our discussion is market rate. Yeah.
Okay, because there's some opportunities for some projects. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say we're open to input on that, to what the needs are, and so we're providing a product that's plugs in to the town,
right,
and provides the needs. Yeah.
There is some room. There's some grants and things that are being done, and then the state initiatives. That one failed, but there's still one out there for having a growth of attainable housing, and it's based on wage, obviously. So there is some opportunity to work with the city on a specific affordable housing project, but that's going to take a little more work, and that would have to be a side-by-side effort with funding There may be some funding available for that we started discussions on, and there's Prop 123, Proposition 123, that is a deadline of November 1st to actually participate in, and that's a percentage of all of our development needs to have at least 3% in affordable housing, and that's calculated in a certain fashion. So that's something that, Chris, we may want to talk about regardless, so that may be, and I'm not hanging a carrot out there to yank it away because it's still yet to all be determined, and those things take more time. Because then when you're after grant money or federal funding, you know, it extends the life of a project typically. But in some cases, it could actually make it faster based on the timeline for construction. But those things are things we've just started talking about at our level, as with Weld County and others. So that's something that I'll just food for thought. We can have a further discussion on that as that stuff develops, but that is something that I've got in the back of my mind, that we do need probably a couple of affordable projects that we could be working with in the future.
That sounds good.
But again,
Well,
with the affordability.
Sounds very good, very interesting.
Yeah, that's that slippery slope too, because you get single families surrounding an affordable project, and they come out of the woodwork thinking that they've got the bottom dwellers, but it's not the case. I mean, this is the whole intent, is to get people into a home. You know, we all know the gig. It's just, there's too much out there, too many people that aren't in housing. And so we've got to do our part to do that. So that's still something that we're working on. But we've got a pretty good diverse product right now. So it'll be interesting to see what you guys, and I think when you do the concept, when you do that, it's good to have concepts of the architectural, because that'll sell a project as well. I mean, the pictures are what people remember when you're selling your concept, not just the layout and design and the engineering, but the actual pictures of what they're going to see on the ground and the livable space. Don't forget the open space. It's so key. So when you're looking at this, the design criteria are within our code. And so you need to ensure that you're meeting those design criteria. And that's going to be part of that discussion when you submit your concept. So do you guys have any other comments or any questions? Because, you know, obviously we'll get some information back to you, and then we can have further discussion.
So the development to the west of you is where the sanitary sewer system is, and that's a rather old development. And Cottonwood actually connects through there already, so we would definitely need to have an analysis performed. And if that showed that we did not have the capacity, then we would have to analyze the slickest solution. But not knowing exactly what that might be, I mean, but I don't know. How do you feel about the capacity in those lines?
When Cottonwood, this is Roy, when Cottonwood did their analysis through there was still capacity, and there's still a little bit of capacity, and depending upon the route it takes, it may not be an issue. But it's something that needs to be looked at with the utility report when it comes in. Yeah, my gut feeling is it's still viable, but we definitely want to prove it.
Todd gave us gave us some good information. It'll be interesting to see how your analysis of the density and that multifamily use, so that the apartment type use would work or not, and what kind of obstacles or challenges we may have in that regard. That will help us kind of answer our own internal question as to which type of project we're most feverish about. I know we're pretty excited about both opportunities, and look forward to getting y'all's information.
I appreciate you guys too. It'd be good working with you, and we look forward to seeing the project. It would be nice to get that cottonwood built out and finished in that area. So it'd just kind of be one of those that's on the edge, but also, really an infill based on what we've been doing. So it'll be nice to see that move forward. And that's really, Chris, that, like I said, we probably will have another conversation, because it may be that you can run both concepts to get a feel from the people that actually make the decision.
Sure. Yep. Well,
So
very good.
I'll give you my logical. Yeah. Good. It's you be safe on the road. Enjoy your trip. I just almost hit a hawk coming across I-70. Seriously, I just about got a red tail. So that was appropriate. So it's but it'll be good to see where you guys come in. I mean, I'm excited to see kind of what fleshes out on both sides too, because I'm not saying that the apartments don't work. I just, I think that needs to be very vetted. The other is kind of a, market driven, and, the duplex units, we just don't have a lot of those available right now. Most of the stuff's been attached and single family. But we do need, I think, based on, and maybe you guys can talk to the project that's building out and see how much interest they've had for those apartment complexes too, and do some due diligence by talking to those guys and see where they stand, because they may be filled up before they even get the CO. So if you need a contact on that, we can help you.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Well, it's been a great talking to you guys. Have a great weekend. And if you need anything else after we get our information back to you, this information that we submit will not give you a written on my thoughts on whether it be apartment or not, because that still needs to be vetted. But what we're going to do is actually, what I'll be looking at is the density and whether we need to reevaluate it based on the density and what we've got already developing within the Cottonwood with those other projects.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Well, good. Yeah. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Pleasure.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.